Hey, everybody, welcome to the Green Room. We are here for DisrupTV, and more importantly, we're going to introduce our guests in reverse order of appearance. And I'm here with my awesome producer, El. Vala's traveling. I think he's somewhere in the air, but probably watching the show. So anyways, so let's introduce guests. We'll start with Payam. Payam, where are we coming in from? What are we talking about today?
I'm today in Denver, but usually I'm in the Bay Area. And I think today we'll be talking about my book, Crossing the Desert.
Yes, there's a lot to talk about there. And so we're going to share some insights on that. And of course, if you guys haven't seen the book, please jump over there. And of course, Elias, where are you coming in from? What are we talking about?
How are you doing? I'm in Jacksonville today, and we're going to talk a little bit about my journey to being president at CART and some of the other roles I've had. What's going on in the world of e-commerce and omni-channel fulfillment these days, a hot space.
It's one of my favorite topics. I cover commerce as well. And and I believe my friend Damon Lemby interviewed you some time back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to learn
part
about
of the family and the network. So
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, El, I'm going to turn it back to you. Do go down for the count and, of course, kick off the show.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hey, everybody, welcome to DisrupTV. And more importantly, I'm Ray Wang, the host for the show today. Vala Afshar is away. We're on episode number 382, and we got some interesting folks. As you know, this is the show that goes weekly where we interview hot startups. We talk about enterprise news, A-list guests, authors, influencers, and much more. And of course, if you're watching, please tweet questions to #DisrupTV or use X as we call it, and go to the @DisrupTV show. And of course, follow us everywhere. We are broadcasting live. So we're going to kick off today with an amazing guest, Ilias Simpson, president at cart.com. And of course, welcome to the show, Elias.
Awesome. Thank you. Excited to be here. Really looking forward to the interview and sharing a little bit about myself and CART.
Yeah, well, Elias, I'm going to do a quick bio for you. He's actually the president of cart.com. He's leading company operations and tech strategy and growth teams. This is a hot e-commerce startup, if you haven't been following. And of course, he's had experience in all the back ends of orders, logistics, supply chain management. And it really started out starting from the ground shop floor up, from driving to all the way to where he is today. So we're going to go through that journey. But more importantly, he was also the president of and CEO of Radio, which is another area where you're seeing a lot on the fulfillment side of e-commerce. And also, he's at leadership role in Modivcare Mobility, bpost Group, Ryder Systems, Pentair, and Cintas. So he's been around in this business, managing, leading folks, but really doing it from the heart. So, And of course, we're going to spend some time talking about a little bit about football and a little bit about NBA. So we'll hit all these things at the same time. But you can follow him on Ilias Simpson on X. And more importantly, follow him as we go on through the show. So welcome to the show, Elias.
Yeah. Again, excited to be here and looking forward to a good conversation. And hopefully we can get to a couple of different topics.
I know. I really want to get into the commerce topics. I think that's going to be the hot part.
Yeah,
and really, you guys have been leading the way there. But let's talk a little bit about your journey, right? And it's a fascinating journey. And it's the American story, right? It's about getting to the American dream. Yeah. Start with that and talk about how do you get here? And of course, more importantly, how we ended up where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, former college athlete, and coming out of college, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Served in the military with the Air Force, and was just kind of shopping around, and some of my Air Force leadership recommended that I look into supply chain and manufacturing, and ended up finding a recruiter who got me a role at Halliburton, and literally started out from the shop floor at Halliburton within their manufacturing and facilities in Duncan, Oklahoma, and fell in love with the world of supply chain, manufacturing, and logistics, and literally just kind of worked my way up from the supervisor level at Halliburton to eventually being a plant manager there, and moving on to Cintas as a plant manager, and then eventually made the jump from manufacturing to supply chain with Ryder, following some former leaders there. But and then eventually found my way into e-commerce intentionally, because I saw that, with everything that Amazon had going and the way that it was going, I saw that as the future. So I made the switch to Radial back in 2017, I want to say it was. And we had a huge meteoric rise at Radial, and I ended up becoming CEO there, and was one of the youngest Black CEOs of a $1 billion plus company. We're about 2 billion top line, almost 2 billion top line at that time, and I was 35 years old running that company. So that was that was great. And then I after leaving that, I went into the healthcare space for a little bit and doing logistics in healthcare as president at Motive Care, and then have found my way back to where I kind of made a name for myself in the e-commerce space with Cart. So really excited about that and what we have going on at Cart and where we're going. So Cart is the fastest growing company in like the history of Houston, and it's been amazing. It went from 0 to 300 million in 2.5 years. So, and obviously we're even larger than that now.
Yeah, how do you go from a mean green linebacker to supply chain logistics? Like, there's similarities here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? There's a lot of stuff you have here. I mean, like to make that journey. But I mean, think about the networks that you were in. Right, the networks, right, from Air Force, right, from Halliburton, from each one of these, right. You meet so many interesting people along the way. You bring in so many people along the way. I mean, that's really part of that leadership journey that we see everywhere. It's the networks that you get yourselves into that actually helps you really, come up with the ideas, inspire you, reinforce you, kind of get into the areas. So for you, right, I mean, and you're working across all these different industries. So what is that? What have you learned from each one of these industries along the way?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's, for me, what I found is that, sometimes you can pick up a great idea from one industry and apply it to another, right? And I think that so often when folks stay in the same industry, they only know the way things work within that industry. And so they assume that that's the best way to do things and the only way to do things. And so, by having some experience outside of a specific industry, or, as you mentioned, with sports and the military, and then being into the manufacturing side as well as the supply chain side, you start to understand the big picture a little bit differently, and you can take techniques and apply them in a different way. And for me, there's a couple of key ones. Like, I picked up a lot of lean manufacturing when I was up with Halliburton and Pentair. So when I went to the traditional kind of supply chain and 3PL world with Ryder and Radial and others, I was able to apply a lot of those lean manufacturing techniques to logistics. And then when I went from, e-commerce to healthcare logistics, I was able to apply a lot of what's happening in e-commerce with technology and lean improvements and other things to the healthcare space that hadn't traditionally seen that. So, different industries have different approaches to things. And I think when you can cross industries and you have some learning agility about yourself, you can take, the experiences you have and apply them. And I've had success in taking leaders from one industry to the other with me, right? And, I found that, as long as they have the right leadership skills and again, they're willing to learn and do something different, experience matters, but experience in leadership matters the most, more than necessarily industry experience to me.
Yeah, and you're seeing that across the board, right? I mean, each of the industries, people in an industry don't necessarily get to see other industries. That cross-industry experience is so valuable because there are patterns that you see that can be applied, and you might not necessarily see them if you've been in the industry for a long time. So,
yeah, absolutely. And, and then some industries do things different, like healthcare kind of lags on the technology front. So, they hadn't quite gone digital like retail had. And so, moving into healthcare, I was able to take some of those digital best practices to the healthcare space to provide the customers and consumers with a better experience.
Yeah, no, healthcare is a different animal. Healthcare and highly regulated industry is all typically are hard to break through on the technology side. So
Yeah, absolutely.
tough area. So when you think about sports and military in terms of leadership styles, we always think that there's different types of leadership styles. There's dynamic leadership styles. Like some people are more, emotional. Some people are more pensive. Some people are more outgoing. Some people are more thoughtful, right? In different ways. But you're in the military, and sports. I mean, you probably experienced different coaches, different leadership approaches, different chains of command styles. So
Yeah.
how did you pick your leadership style? Like if I was on, if you were like asking someone on your team, how would they describe your leadership style?
Yeah, no, that's great. So I'll answer the first part first around how I picked it. I took a little bit from everything, right? Like I think that's what makes my leadership style unique is that, one of the things I saw is that, to your point, different coaches had different styles, but they could both be effective. And so, it was really more around how authentic they were, how much they understood the mission of the team and understood their players. And then in the military, same thing, there's a lot of really good things you can take from the military in terms of discipline and teamwork and, being all in. But also the military can have a little bit of elements of, really, really strict chain of command and other things that I didn't love, right? So for me, it was taking a combination of the things that I saw that were really effective from each of those spaces, whether it be football or the military, and then applying that to my leadership style. So my leadership style is very much, I call it relentless leadership, but it's also very much a servant leadership style in the sense that, I'm relentless about helping my team be successful. Like I see my primary job as a leader to eliminate barriers, help my team be successful, help people grow and develop. And that leadership for me really is about people. And, when it comes to the business side of it, it's really how do you make sure that the people within the business are helping the business to be successful, right? Because there's no business that doesn't rely on people in some form or fashion. So leadership to me is really the most important part of your business. You can have a great product or a great customer base or whatever. But if you don't have great people who are being led well within your organization, you will fail. So for me, I really focus on how do I help my team be successful? I'm very collaborative. I'm very transparent. I'm very authentic. I'm accessible. So again, I don't have that strict chain of command per se, but I also believe in, respect for authority and those types of things as well. So, but it's all about a team. Like for me, it's all about a team. You got to have a team, you got to build a team, and you got to function as a team, all pulling in the same direction to be successful. So I'm a bit of a coach as a leader for sure.
As president at cart.com, what does that include? What are the rules? So
yeah, absolutely. So I report to our founder, and obviously we're an e-commerce and omni-channel third-party logistics provider as well as a technology company. We have software and other things that we provide. So I oversee everything at the business outside of like the finance piece of the organization. I own the P&L, but the CFO reports to the founder. But yeah, so I mean, obviously I have sales teams, I have operations teams, I have technology teams, very different teams, and we have to bring that all together to make it work for our customers. And e-commerce is a hot space, and what's going on with retail and brands. So
but you're doing more than e-commerce, right? And traditionally,
absolutely.
we think about e-commerce, we think about the front end of e-commerce, right? And really, just going from campaign to lead and getting to an order. You guys are doing the back end on the fulfillment as well, which is not traditional e-commerce, more kind of like the supply chain logistics, WMS, TMS side of the house, right? Which is interesting. So tell us a little bit more about the customers you have, right? I mean, why unified commerce? So
we work with brands like Tom's and PacSun. And to your point, we are very unique in the sense that, a lot of companies claim to be end-to-end unified commerce or omni-channel. Well, I guess we are the ones who say unified commerce, but a lot of say omni-channel. What's unique about us is, to your point, we can do the front end. We have the professional services, the marketing services, the marketplace, but then we can keep going, right? And we can keep going. We can actually do your fulfillment, your order management, your warehouse management, your final mile, your customer engagement on the call center side. So we truly can go end to end And when I say end to end, it's the end isn't, you know, we don't start at shipping. We start all the way at the front end of how you bring it.
Yeah, I saw that. I
To
saw
get
drop
it.
shipping on there. I saw
Absolutely.
D2C. I saw, I
Yeah.
mean, that's crazy. I mean, so
Yeah.
how big is the company? So,
Yeah, so I can't get the specific numbers out there, but we,
okay,
as I
all right.
mentioned, we're well over 300 million. We were well over 300 million this last year, and we're growing. So, you know, when we do kind of say where we are, it'll be significantly
Yeah,
larger
no,
than that at this
I saw
point.
Under Armour uses you guys, and
Yeah. So
PacSun and
we've
Adidas and a whole bunch of other
yeah,
big brands.
absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, we're still looking for more brands that we can support. And you know, our aspirations are to you know, right now we're valued at 1.2 billion. Our aspirations are to continue to grow and, you know, at some point in time look to go public. So um but yeah, we're excited, and you know, we're still growing, you know, 20+% year over year easily in the business right now.
Yeah, no, I'm fascinated by the commerce side of this house. That's what I do cover. We see the competitors in the space, but we also see a lot of people, high growth, mid market, big brands are really missing a market, and there's really not a solution because they can't build it on their own.
Yeah,
And they don't have the money to go build it on their own, and they rather focus on getting the product and the brand right. And then you have on the very very high end, like these big systems that people have been using for a while that have been aging, and people haven't
absolutely.
really updated or refreshed them for kind of the modern era. And so there's this little interesting fight. And then you've got people that custom built their systems
Yeah.
that are really trying to unload because they're like, we don't want to maintain this. We have to try something different. So the market is completely ripe. And more interestingly is now that we have a new administration in office, you know, we will no longer have the constraints on M&A consolidation and IPO because of what was going on with Lena Khan. And
Yeah.
so that's actually very exciting because we're about to see the market take off to the next level, which we didn't think was possible even before we were today.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
it's about to go on fire, and it's not necessarily more commerce. It's just a sense that there's more pipeline, right? There's going to be a lot more pipeline available, and so people are really excited, and they're now doubling down because people's plans 2 weeks ago were very different than they are today.
Right.
Which is really interesting to watch.
You're exactly right. We literally had a conversation around that earlier this week. That, you know, what's going to happen with the M&A market is going to be really interesting. Like, saying that we haven't seen something like that since like 1992. What's gonna open up in terms of opportunities for
people have been waiting. You got a Stripe IPO that's been waiting forever. You've got like you can go down like at least 15 IPOs that people have been waiting because the conditions were not correct.
Absolutely.
So, and that means, you know, and then on the commerce side, right, when you think about what's going to happen from trade perspectives, a lot of the fulfillment is going to have to change, right? The supply chains are actually going to be all nearshored, or they're going to shift.
It's going to have to come back to the US.
Throwing it into Mexico and funneling it up, you know, on USMCA isn't going to work, right?
No,
so,
absolutely.
So
we have a lot of
people are going to buy new systems because now's a chance to jump in. So you guys are in a great spot. That's all I can say. So.
Yeah, no, we've already had a couple of potential customers and existing customers come to us over exactly that with the trade side, and you know what's rolled out with the 321, and people looking to already bring their fulfillment back into the US. So that's going to be a huge opportunity for us, and we're definitely excited and poised and ready for that. So
yeah, but this has happened just as all the space got taken up by data centers, right? So the fulfillment warehouses are now all data centers.
Right.
That's all the REITs went, right? And we're sitting here like, oh my God, how's this going to work? There's no more land, right? So the question is the arbitrage on getting data center, like getting lands for fulfillment centers, because it's going to be so hot, or is the arbitrage really going somewhere else? But you get the idea. Like it's crazy, right? Like we had conversations where people are like, how are we going to move all this stuff from Mexico back up here? It's like,
you got to go early. That's the key. That's what we keep telling everybody. Go early before everybody else goes at the same time.
Or they just count on you guys.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
Because that's why I'm saying you could be like the equivalent of the Flextronics or like the TSMC of like, you know, getting that fulfillment in place. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, because we can do things like we have so many versatile options, right? So like kind of regardless of what you're looking for, Cart can provide some level of solution, right? You know, our technology is so flexible, and then we have fulfillment footprint, but we can also do drop ship. We can do all these other things. So, you know, in terms of being able to get to a really creative supply chain strategy in this really unique environment, we are a great partner in that sense for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really, really cool. So, but yeah, so super exciting space. And then we add AI on top of this. And so we got AI, we got sensing, we got all the vision stuff, we got automated warehouses. What does that mean for you guys? How does the text fit into that future?
Yeah, no, I think the AI part is interesting. Obviously, on the automated facilities, we're right there with everybody else exploring robotics and automation.
I want to visit. I want to go visit one of your facilities.
Yeah.
I
We have quite a bit of
I got an
automation.
invite to go visit something in Nashville for a large, $1 trillion company, and I was like, I didn't take the offer. I should have gone to see it because I've heard that automation, like what's going on there, is at machine scale, not even at a human scale. So
yeah, absolutely. No, and I think people would be surprised that there's robots that are doing picking and whatnot in these warehouses and have been for a couple of years now. And it's, they've got the technology there has gotten even more advanced to where, these robots are almost, fully autonomous. So it's really interesting. You always have to be careful with the automation because you don't want to overdo it, right? Like you need to maintain some level of flexibility, but we absolutely, have automation, robotics, all of that. And on the AI front, that we're still exploring what that does for us, right? Like everybody's, we actually I was at a CEO retreat the other day. A bit of a buzzword, but CEOs are actually kind of tired of hearing it because they don't really know what to do with it. But there's a ton of places in the business where it makes sense. And the kind of the obvious one is customer engagement and call centers where, at this point, those AI bots, you can't tell the difference between them and a person. And we had someone who was sharing that they did a side-by-side between a real person and a bot, and nobody could tell which one was the one that everybody guessed was the bot was actually the person. They were like, oh no, that's a hallucination. And it was actually a person. Whereas
how did that person feel? You were so boring. We thought you were a bot.
So I mean, it's I think right now the focus on AI isn't really how you can sell it. It's how you can use it to more effectively run your business. And so that's where, we will focus as well.
Yeah, we are talking a lot at our conference this year, and we basically spent a lot talking about the fact that it's not about more tech, it's about making better decisions, making faster decisions. It's a concept we call decision velocity. And if you can actually focus the AI conversation on where and when do you insert a human, not where you automate, it gets really interesting. I was talking to, actually just yesterday, I was with my friend Phil Thompson at Essence. And he had the responsibility as CTO of automating the entire operation for Essence. And you can imagine if you've seen their operations, it's a very, very interesting kind of piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he finally automated it.
I saw for the first time this week the bots that manage other bots. So like where people are actually creating like AI org charts where there's bots that do some task, and then there's bots that manage those tasks, and then there's like a bot that's like it's really interesting where it's going in terms of the level and the amount of AI people can use. And heard about it, and then all of a sudden it was here, like and
moving really fast. The quality bots that are managing the other bots, the manager bots that are there. I don't know who's managing the humans, but the bots are. Just I can say, it's like we're like, what's going on here? Yeah. So. Well, this is great, right? We've spent some time talking about, the journey, but I do want to spend some time talking about kind of the fun things of life. What's work-life balance for you, right?
Yeah. No, I think, that's always an interesting topic, right? Especially when, you're leading a large organization, you're traveling quite a bit. For me, the goal is always that your work doesn't interrupt your life, right? Like that's the way I think about it, right? Like I don't think, the word balance to me doesn't necessarily mean 50-50. It's just really around how you make it work for you so that you can do the things you need to do in your personal life.
But let's say you're having so much fun at work.
Yeah.
What do you do? Because that's where I'm at, right? I'm having so much fun at work. I'm not sure it's balanced.
Right. Yeah. My thing is I like to take my wife on the road with me. My wife goes on the road with me when I'm traveling, that kind of thing. And, I take the kids to the office and let them see the office and see the warehouses and that kind of thing. So, I think it's how you as a, individual kind of make sure your personal life and your this idea that, you're going to spend 50-50 is kind of crazy to me, especially if you're a president, right? Like I'm going to be at work more than I'm doing other things. Like that's a reality. can't have a good kind of home life and family situation. And I don't miss a lot, right? Like I find ways to make it work to attend events for the kids, whether it be ballet or karate, whatever it may be, right? So just can't make everyone, right? Like sometimes if a customer needs me on a call, I'm gonna be on that call and I'm gonna miss karate that day. But I try to work around it as best I can. So
we got a special comment here. I don't know if you know who that is, but
not sure who that is either.
I don't either. We'll see. What's name, last name? See enough as a relative.
Yeah.
If
it is, I don't know them.
So, but anyways, yeah, very, very cool. So, all right, but we see work-life balance, we see leadership. There's a lot in this journey here. What would you tell your younger self today from your future self? Like, what would you have told them? Like, what lessons have you picked up that you'd say, hey, I wish I would have known this. I should have told my younger self this.
Yeah, no, I think, I actually think about that quite a bit. Now, for one, I think the first thing I would have told myself is what you believe is right. Like, and what I believed as a younger leader was that if I led the right way and if I worked hard, I would be successful. And, I think I believed in that, but I always think like if I could go back and tell myself, it would have made some days that were hard a little easier, knowing that it was going to pay off. So I'm one of those people that just, between football and the military and my career, I believe if you truly put the work in, then the results will come. Like I was, a mediocre high school football player, as a sophomore and junior, and then, put the work in and became a great player. And, as we mentioned, I started out, entry level in my career and have risen to a senior level. So for me, I really believe that, the hard work pays off. And I think, the way you lead matters, because a lot of the opportunities I've gotten, as you mentioned earlier, have come through networking and other things. And people who know me, they know I'm a good person. They know that, I do things the right way. And so, I'm able to take people with me. I'm able to have people who, I ended up at CART because there's people at CART who worked with me at Radial and were able to talk to the founder and he and I connected. So I think that's the other piece is, be a good person and be, and work hard and it'll pay off for you.
No, great lessons learned. We're with Ilias Simpson, president at cart.com. You can follow him on X at Ilias Simpson. Thank you so much for being on the show, sharing your insights, your journey, the leadership, and of course, hey, what's happening what's hot in commerce, because that's a topic that I love. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much
for having me. I really
Happy Friday.
Same to you.
Very, very cool. Well, as you can see, top execs, top CEOs, top folks we talk to, interesting industries. And of course, now we've got great thought leaders. So, so welcome to the show. How are you doing, Payam?
I am doing well. Fascinating conversation with Ilias. Really enjoyed that.
Well, I'm here with Payam, and he's the founder and CEO of One Planet Group and author of Crossing the Desert, which we're going to spend some time on. So Payam is an entrepreneur, investor, founder of One Planet Group, and the author of this book, Crossing the Desert, The Power of Embracing Life's Difficult Journeys. So it came out in June. Born in Iran, Payam was forced to flee at the age of 16, and Vala would have loved this because he had went through similar journeys. But this was a little bit different because you're a Baha'i, and of course, you and your brother founded AutoWeb, which is an amazing marketplace. I was on there all the time when I was a little younger, and of course, you took that company public in 1999. So, of course, since then, you've built a whole bunch of different tech and media businesses. You've invested in more than 50 companies as a LP investor, seed investor, and of course, active investor in some cases, from what I could tell. And of course, you believe in the American dream, capitalism, and of course, our ability to elevate humanity. So you can follow him on X at Payam Zamani. And more importantly, he's here live on the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ray. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. And of course, really want to spend some time on the book. And it's an amazing book. And what it is it really talks about how to go through the most difficult things that happen in your life, right? And, sometimes we forget like how to do that, right? Because life might be too easy, life might be too good, or maybe you just don't even know how to get there. So long before you launched a $1 billion IPO in America as an immigrant entrepreneur, what was it like leaving a Baha'i child living in Iran? Because that's conflicting religions going on here,
Yeah, no, I mean, life was very different. I was born in Iran. I was born in a Baha'i family. And for those of you who don't know anything about the Baha'i faith, just Google it, Baha'i, Baha apostrophe I. And it's, the biggest tenet of the faith is that we believe that all religions are part of one progressive revelation. If there's one God, there can only be one truth. So to us, it's and, not or. So I believe in Jesus, I believe in Moses, and I can also be a Baha'i. And but the Islamic government of Iran had a very tough time with the Baha'i faith because of our progressive teachings, the absolute equality of men and women, the fact that we don't have clergy. We believe that clergy are a middleman between us and the divine, and we're all educated. We can read the writings for ourselves. Why do I need a clergy to tell me, what the writings say, and so on and so forth? So the Iranian government, after the Iranian Revolution, made life very difficult for Baha'is. In fact, they killed hundreds of Baha'is. They expelled all Baha'is from universities and from their jobs. And many Baha'is from even schools. Like I was 10 and a half, 11 years old, and I was expelled from 6th grade. But when I say expelled, I don't mean that somebody comes and says that as of tomorrow, you no longer need to show up, but rather sending a mob of 50 after me to try to kill me. That is the way they wanted to expel. So life was very, very difficult being a Baha'i in Iran, as it was the case for many others during that period. And then imagine at the same time, there was a war going on with Iraq, that 1 million people died in that war. So there was no safe place to be.
That's crazy. That's a crazy story. I mean, heading out here at 16, were you able to speak the language? Did you know English? Did you have to start from scratch?
I did not speak English when I arrived in the US. And as in the book I talk about it, one of the things that the government of Iran did was that they took our passports away. Yep. They didn't like us, but they didn't want us to leave either. So they made it impossible for Baha'is to leave Iran. So to leave Iran, my parents had to smuggle me, crossing the desert. It's metaphoric, but also there was a real desert that I had to cross to illegally make it to Pakistan, and then ultimately gain acceptance from the United States and come to the US as a refugee, and which I landed in San Francisco on June 20th, 1988, when I was 17 years old, with my brother and I together having $75 in our pocket. And I did not speak any English. So it was definitely a journey and a struggle to get going.
That's crazy. And from there to $1 billion IPO, I mean, we're going to have to fill in the blanks. There's a lot of blanks here. Good.
So, what happened was clearly, and I always say this, that there's a platform. Think of the United States as a platform, an amazing platform that was built over many years, over a few hundred years, partly justly, partly unjustly, when you think about what we did to African Americans and so on in this country. But nevertheless, today we have a platform that is probably better than anything else that exists anywhere else in the world. And so I benefited from that. I arrived in a country that gave me the privilege to be able to build, to be able to live a free life, to have the freedom of speech. And I was able to take advantage of that. And, my brother and I, out of college, we started our first business, AutoWeb.com. We were at the right place at the right time. We did not fit the mold in Silicon Valley. I mean, you were in Silicon Valley.
Not at all.
I mean, we did not go to an Ivy League school. And back then, if you remember, in the early 90s, you really had to be in your 20s, white guy, Ivy League school to get funding. We had to go all the way to Fort Lee, New Jersey to get funding, even though we were down the street from Sand Hill Road, because, again, we did not fit the mold. But nevertheless, there was an opportunity to raise money. It just happened to be in New Jersey, and we did. And we were able to build our business against all odds.
So, no, it was amazing. I mean, the story behind that. But are we really the promised land, the U.S.?
So, I truly believe that this country has a spiritual destiny. I mean, let me put it this way. I've been stateless. I've lived in a country in Iran where bombs were dropping that for the most part were made in America. But today, when you think about, if you're a teenager in Gaza and the bombs are dropping on you, and they are for the most part made in America, if someone has to ask you, what country do you have hope in that will potentially help bring about a better situation for you? Do you think they will say Saudi Arabia, China,
No,
Russia?
no,
They will say America.
no.
And I was there. I was in that kind of a situation in Iran, and I thought that my hope was in America, and still is today. Why? Because at the end of the day, there's a goodness about this nation that is very special, despite all the challenges that we have. And I see that as our spiritual destiny. We do represent hope to the world. And as one immigrant who's now an American citizen, I hope that hope will not dim. And I hope as Americans, we will not only, we won't shy away from it, we will embrace it. It's an amazing thing to represent hope to the world.
I mean, look at this. People are already commenting here. So it is the story of immigration, and it is a story of hope. And let's talk about spiritual capitalism, Payam, because it's really important. I mean, this destiny that you're talking about in the U.S., this goodness, it is amazing. It's an amazing country. It's a culture of abundance. It starts there, and it's been a very fortunate country. So, but the spiritual capitalism piece is very different. It's a unique concept. So, what is spiritual capitalism, and your philosophy here?
Sure. So, you mentioned that, I co-founded a company, AutoWeb.com, that we took public in 1999. And it was March 23rd, 1999. I was at NASDAQ. I was 28 years old. We took that company public. And I was worth a few $100 million, at least on paper at that moment. Today, I'm embarrassed to say that the first thing that came to my mind was that now I need to do something bigger. Why? Because capitalism, as it is practiced today, tells us that it's never enough. There's always a race against others and against yourself to accumulate more resources that will allow you to consume more. Now, I'm embarrassed to say that today because I feel like I had bought into what is a very false way of looking at success. And luckily, I say luckily, I lost all of that money. And I say luckily because that would have been toxic to me as a 28-year-old with that mentality. I did not know how to become an agent for the betterment of the world. I wasn't ready for it. Today, the way I look at capitalism is that we as people who operate businesses and so on should stop looking at humans as a token of economic value, that is all material, that I should just maximize my profits, my shareholder value, and so on, because I'm after more, and it's never enough. But I should rather look at you, whether you are my customer, my friend, my neighbor, even my competitor, as a noble spiritual being, that you have an existence by far greater than this. And I think that by doing that, I will actually live a more fulfilling life. I will get more out of my business.
It's very interesting. I think you're going to start a whole movement here. Conferences, events, instead of conference at the sea or something. We'll have spiritual capitalism on the sea. So, but this journey that you're talking about, right? It's your personal journey at the same time as a corporate journey, as well as this future that you want to talk about. And I really wanted to spend some time on unwanted lessons, right? You spent some time talking about some of the pain, but things that you learned because of serendipity, right? So talk about give me one of those unwanted lessons that you feel kind of represents kind of the character and the fiber of who you are.
Yeah. I talk about this quite a bit, that in my life, there were twice situations that I found myself in that I did not think I can get out of those situations alive, literally alive. And now those situations one of them happened when I was 10 and a half years old and I was expelled from school in Iran. And the second one happened when I crossed the desert to escape Iran. And both of those situations clearly they have left their marks on who I am today. I think I'm more likely to probably go towards fire than more than an average person, because I feel like I can probably get out of it alive. But also it makes business and business problems a lot more manageable for me, and I get less stress, build up less anxiety about them, because the chances are I'm going to survive them. And but I have fundamentally learned that every downhill, every crisis is followed by victory, and every victory by crisis. What does that mean? That when you are going through those difficult days, don't have too much despair, because that's not going to last. Good days are inevitable, they're going to follow. But then at the same time, when you're having great days, your stock price is high, your business going well, don't get too comfortable. That's not going to last. They never do.
Yep.
And just understand that's a cycle of life, that every spring is followed by summer, autumn, and winter, and so on and so forth. That's a cycle of life. Be comfortable with it. Lean into it.
So you're talking about a state that my co-host Vala loves to talk about, is go with the flow, right?
Absolutely. It's the flow of life. It's the nature.
Yeah, go with the flow. Enjoy that flow. So crossing 1,500 miles, I assume, from Tehran to Islamabad, or maybe Lahore, right? Where did you end up?
Lahore.
Oh, wow. Okay. How does that work? Do you even remember, or have you just kind of blanked that out? Because that's not an easy journey. I mean,
it's interesting. The most
you don't even know if you're going to show up alive.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it again in the book that as I was going through that, I was 16 years old by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered what came through, what I kept on thinking about was roadkill, that I can be a roadkill and no one will ever remember or will know what has happened to me going through this. Because when you think about where Iran, Pakistan, and Afghanistan meet, that's the desert I was crossing. It's one of the worst places on the planet. Yeah. Rugged places, dangerous places you can possibly be in. So it's for 16-year-olds,
it's desert, it's hot, there's no water, there's no services.
It's called the emptiness desert. NASA says that it reaches temperatures of 152 Fahrenheit. I crossed it on July 8th, 1987. It was a hot day.
It's like a John Wick movie, It's like, you're like, what's going on here? So, wow, that's pretty wild. Okay, so how do you look at things? You have this spiritual view,
mm-hmm.
And we are living our lives in our present. What do we do? How do we live our lives and and think about the legacy that we're going to leave behind? I don't think I'm old enough to think of legacy. I'm in my mid-50s. I'm not sure I'm thinking about legacy. Someone in their 20s definitely is not working backwards to think about their legacy. But it's very important. I think there's kind of like a North Star to doing this. So
yeah,
talk about this and what people hope to leave behind.
So, when I talk to entrepreneurs and when I invest in entrepreneurs, I ask them to sign the document that says for the betterment of the world.
Yes.
And that document basically says that for the love I have for humanity, there's certain things that I will choose to do differently than capitalism will tell me I should follow. The idea really that I'm trying to communicate here with these entrepreneurs is that don't wait for an end game. Don't wait for an exit, for an IPO. The fact is, overwhelming majority of companies will never survive it to get that far. You want that journey to be worth living. You want every day to be a life that combines life of service and the material life, the professional life, the money-making life together. Because I feel like unless we do that, we're not going to live our most fulfilling state. And that is something that we're missing. I mean, if you think about Silicon Valley, so many CEOs, they talk about psychedelics and this and that, where they're trying to find meaning. I don't think there's a shortcut. I really don't think there's a shortcut. You have to put in the time and effort, and that happens every day. That is why I believe that serving humanity should be intertwined like milk and sugar, that you cannot separate them in your everyday work. You don't wait till the evening or the weekend to say that, how can I serve? It's got to be one part of your job every single day. And I do believe that if I do my work with service to humanity as a part of it, that is same as worship. Worship doesn't have to be me going to church and I'm praying. If I'm serving you, I am living my best state. I want that to be a part of my professional effort every single day.
You know, the One Planet Summit that you held is a good embodiment of that. Tell us a little bit more, some of the highlights that were there. This year you focused on, I think, a little bit of different piece, the spiritual enterprise. You started out with spiritual capitalism the year before. And, you know, this is more than like, hey, go try psychedelic to open up your chakra. I mean, that's not going to get you there. I mean, it's a lot deeper. It's a lot deeper what you're trying to achieve there. So talk about the conference a little bit.
Yeah, no, we had great examples of people who are what I just mentioned, that they are my mentors. They are the people who are doing this at scale today. I mean, you look at a company like Angel Studios.
Neil Harmon. Yeah.
Neil Harmon, a good friend of mine. And Neil Harmon, you know, the company that they've started, that while Hollywood is willing to put whatever on the screen that will make money, they don't care if that will cause mental health issues. They don't care if that will cause violence. They just cannot care less. These guys decided that we'll go against that. We don't care if it makes money or not. We will only do content that will bring light to the world. And guess what? Financially, they're doing better than their peers, and they're building a better company. Why? Because Hollywood, they decide to go after the lowest aspect of us as humans.
Yep.
They decided to go at the higher aspect of us as humans, and they're showing that it works. It makes money, and it's a great business, and that is a life of service. Through their work, through their everyday profession, they're living a life of service, and I love that.
Are we redefining capitalism here?
It's about time. I mean, look at the Gordon Gekko era of capitalism, the 1980s, that greed is good, which is still being practiced. I feel like it's about time for us to think about a different approach. That hasn't worked.
So we went through conscious capitalism. Now it's spiritual capitalism. Is capitalism dead? Like when we look at models like China, or is China more like capitalism than we realize?
So,
and I know that's a hypothetical.
Yeah, no. I mean, I actually have a very strong feeling on that. I should keep it to myself.
No, please go. Please go. This is like a living room conversation.
Yeah. Here's what I will tell you, that I think that a lot of people have tried. They've danced around the idea of how capitalism can evolve and become better. But we are all trying to ignore one major fact, that we are spiritual beings and having this temporary physical experience on this planet. Until and unless we lean into our spiritual side, we're going to miss something massive. I mean, I'll give you an example. One of the Fortune 500 CEOs, well, I'll tell you, the CEO of Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, in front of Congress, one of the committees, they asked him a question and he said, look, that's unethical. It's not illegal. Make it illegal so I don't do it. The point is, if you want people, the CEOs, the professionals, and so on, even average citizen, to not be unethical, to not be dishonest, to not be liars, to not be unkind, laws are not going to fix that. Laws are not going to make someone less racist.
No, it's not coming from
it
law.
Requires a spiritual transformation.
Yes.
But we have all decided, I say all because that has become kind of like the popular thing these days, that we run away from spirituality and we try to look for that shortcut through psychedelics and so on. The fact is, spirituality starts with virtues, with me wanting to be kind to you, unconditionally kind to you. For me to know that if I'm building a social media company, I'm not going to do whatever it takes to get you to spend more time on the platform, even if that is going to cause mental health problems for the youth who are using that platform. Because I'm going to go after profit, but profits without a loss.
So one of my good friends is Ari Kayumi, and she's been talking about mindfulness, right? Making that her firm is Mindful Venture Capital. And the idea is really, we've gone from persuasive technologies, right, which force you to waste time, they suck up all your resources, to consensual technologies, which seek your permission, to ultimately mindful technologies, which actually operate on your behalf, right? And it's an interesting design point, because I think the way we're headed with AI, unfortunately, is more persuasive. It's more controlling, as opposed to giving us choices. It's working for the system. It's not giving us choices, and it's not serving as an agent for us, right? And it's a very interesting thing as to where these technologies are headed and how we actually design things. Because in our world today, we offer, we have a culture of scarcity on one end, a culture of abundance on the other, centralization on the bottom, decentralization on the top. And AI today is designed for centralized scarcity, which is really scary when humans want decentralized abundance, right? But you can't operate with decentralized abundance if there's no sense of moral compass, right? Or sense of spiritual.
Yes.
It's going to be very, very interesting, because in some cultures, back to our China discussion, they've decided that you can't make that decision. They've decided that they'll set the rules on the spirituality for you, and you get a very, very interesting result. Whereas in the West, it looks like chaos, like anything can happen, right? And so it's the difference between, I would say, between Singapore and Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
And you get this kind of like centralized authoritarian authority and just decentralized chaos democracy, right? And it becomes very, very interesting in that outlook. So how do we get people to be more spiritual about capitalism? So you're creating a movement.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that but by helping people understand that building a company based on the spiritual principles, the virtues that as a kid we were taught, but then when we went to work, they told us that, well, business is just business, leave those things behind. But we go the opposite. We bring all of those to work, all of those virtues that we were taught as kids, because that will allow us to build better businesses with a heart, businesses that will not do anything unethical, because as kids we were told not to do anything unethical. We actually bring it to the workplace. And, like I said, laws are not going to solve these problems. They got to come from the heart. And the heart is managed not by the laws of the country, they're managed by spiritual teachings. So I need to rebuild my relationship with that divine that we were told over the last few decades that leave that behind. You're not progressive if you feel like you have a relationship with the divine. We should lean into that. I think that is the best and the most progressive way for us to live our lives and get the most enjoyment out of it.
So I would go more meta with you. I believe we're energy signatures living in different dimensions, and sometimes we carry a memory of that past. So, sometimes you're freed from this world, and sometimes you're in a different dimension. So you have to figure that out. I've never taken any drugs to get there.
Me neither. So you and I have that in common.
You're the only two people in San Francisco that have
exactly.
So we're in a lonely camp. So, especially
I think I'm high enough. I don't need to take anything.
I know. It's exactly so. But it's kind of like interesting, right? Where we're seeing this now. Talk about the book, right? You talk about recognizing and loving the essence of every human. Mm-hmm. Can you do that while you're trying to run a business? This is like the interesting conflict that we always talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the spiritual principles, they give us, in a sense, the guardrails. They give us a North Star. And I mean, I know that I make a ton of mistakes. I tell this often, that when I speak to a crowd and some of my employees are in the crowd, I feel so self-conscious, because I feel like they're watching me talk about these principles, and they're like, oh my God, he makes a ton of mistakes on a daily basis. And that is true. I do. And I feel like I need to have that humble posture of learning, to know and to hold myself accountable that I make a ton of mistakes all the time, but that North Star is there. I'm attempting to live within those guardrails. And that's all that there is to it. We cannot be too difficult on ourselves. We're still, people who are allowed to make mistakes along the way. But can we bring ourselves to account every day that, look, I'm running a company that is worth X amount. How could it be that I still have employees that they cannot make ends meet? If I have a company that's making a ton of profit, but I still have employees that I'm not giving health benefits to, how can that be? And so on and so forth. I feel like living these spiritual principles will more than likely put, in a sense, a cap into how big our companies can become. Maybe companies will no longer grow to $100 billion in valuation. Maybe that's okay. Maybe the world doesn't need multinationals that control a massive chunk of the globe. Is that good for humanity? I don't know. Probably not.
Oh, we love the Illuminati. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, do we need to have people who are worth hundreds of billions of dollars? Is that good for humanity? I doubt that it
only if
is.
they're spiritually good. I don't think it's a good or bad. I mean, if they have that notion of what they want to do for the world, there could be some interesting things.
Maybe. I actually tend to believe that accumulated wealth is the worst form of wealth, because that can bring a lot of problems, and that power that comes with it can give, in a sense, too much control to one individual. I think wealth should go back into the system, should benefit humanity. So accumulation of wealth, I actually don't believe is the right outcome.
I think the accumulation of wealth I look at it as a different way. It is, it's what happens when you have been very, very poor and suddenly you're hoarding. It's the notion of hoarding. You're hoarding because you want options. So it's not because you're just hoarding because you want options, right? And
how much do you hoard? How much is enough?
And you never know how much is enough, because if you've never had anything and you suddenly have something, the question is like, well, I like this feeling, I don't want to lose it, so they just continue to hoard, so they just accumulate wealth. But it's not like everybody can do that. I know people with up and down cycles, like, they won it, they lost it, they won it, they lost it, they won it again, and then they lost it. I mean, so there's a little bit of luck, a little probability distribution that's going on here. But
yeah, I mean, look, I feel that the extremes of wealth that we see in the world today is simply an untenable path that we're on. And I think that this has massive destabilizing consequences on humanity.
Yes.
And I don't think that's good. That's good for humanity. So, and I'm not necessarily, getting into the discussion about taxation and so on. I feel like, again, if wealthy always have more opportunities to dodge taxes. So even if you raise taxes, the chances are it's going to affect the people, the middle class, the most. But I think that as long as we as humanity at least are on the path that we see each other as that spiritual being that is not a token of economic value, the chances are that even the wealthy, even those uber wealthy, they want to see that their wealth will benefit the world in a meaningful way. And they don't wait till they're 80 or when they're about to die to give the money away.
Go back to your purpose. Let's go back to your legacy, like what you want to be known for. I think what we're missing right now is the demand side for purpose, giving people purpose. Right? People have to find that purpose. And at a spiritual level, if they don't know what their purpose is, they're not sure what they're going to do between now and there. So it's almost as if we have to help people redefine what their purpose is so that they can actually achieve that peace in their spiritual approach. And, if they want to make some money along the way to continue that purpose, then it gets really interesting. You might actually that might be the completion to your cycle here. Or not.
Maybe that's the opening or the final chapter to the next book.
Oh no, let's not talk about next books. I've been trying to write my next book for the last year and a half. It's not a good place.
What's funny is that I've always seen myself as an entrepreneur and not an author. And now when you go on Google, you search for my name, it says I'm an author. I'm like,
oh wait, they just changed that. No, they just changed that. It shows up that way for me. So if you type my name in Google, it says author now. It was like crazy.
I'm like, I built all these businesses, written one book, and all of a sudden I'm an author, not an entrepreneur anymore. So
I lost entrepreneur as well. I lost like media personality. I lost everything.
That's right.
So it's kind of bizarre. I was really surprised. Anyways, well, hey, I thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely.
I would love to check out your next event. Sounds like a very exciting one. We're here with Payam Zamani, Chairman and CEO, One Planet Group, and Inspirato, and author of the USA Today bestseller, Crossing the Desert. Follow him on X at Payam Zamani. Thank you so much for being on the show today. We'll see you guys all in the green room.
Thank you, Ray.
All right, take care. All right, everybody. It's very, very exciting. And of course, we've had some very interesting insights. We started with Ilias telling us about the story in terms of, going from mean green linebacker to, starting from the ground up to becoming a CEO, and a very interesting CEO with introspective perspectives, being able to understand people in terms of, all the different roles he's been in, and of course, how that impacts his leadership style, and more importantly, how he views the world. We actually spent some time with Payam as well. And Payam was showing us a little bit about spiritual capitalism, his journey from crossing the desert. You get a chance to see what it looks like in terms of the mindset of what might be next and how you can leave a legacy, but more importantly, where spiritual capitalism could actually take us into a different definition from the current free market capitalism that we have today, which I think I am a free marketer guy, but kind of interesting. But next week, coming up on the next episode number 383, we've got Gerd Leonard, futurist, public thinker, author of Technology versus Humanity, and the CEO of the Futures Agency. We get some great insights. Stefan Diefenbacher, author of How to Create Innovation, the ultimate guide to proven strategies and business models to drive innovation and digital transformation. And so if it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. Catch us 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern every Friday with Vala Afshar and myself. So see you on the next show.